Hi, this is Gautam. For today's episode of Atlas Agenda, we're going to look at Nigeria. And thanks to all the students who had commented on the previous episode regarding the Ukraine. Now, the main reason why we have the discussion on Nigeria is that if you're following news articles, you would know that in Nigeria there has been several reports on vandalizing attacks not only by terrorist organizations but also by bandits. So, as you would have seen the format of the Atlas agenda. Rather than concentrating on the news, we focus directly on the topics in which you'll get questions in your prelims exam. So, first, talking about location, Nigeria is one of the most important countries in Africa. If you look at the total population in Nigeria, it is the sixth largest in the world. So that automatically puts Nigeria on the world map. And the second thing is, it's one of the fastest growing economies in Africa. So apart from its population resources, it's expected that economically it is contributing a lot for growth. Now, if you look at the location of Nigeria in Western Africa, the southern part of your Nigerian coastline is bordering your Atlantic Ocean. You have four other countries bordering Nigeria. On the western side, we have Benin. On the north and northwestern side of Nigerian border, we have Niger. On the eastern side of Nigeria, we have the country of Chad. And then finally, to the northeastern side and largely the eastern side, we have the country of Cameroon. So the southern part of Nigeria is bordering your Atlantic Ocean, and you have four other countries, namely Benin, Niger, Chad, and Cameroon forming the border with Nigeria. Now, the second thing which you have to know about Nigeria is its importance for economic resources. One of the biggest exported commodities and the largest revenue for Nigeria comes from oil. And when it comes to oil resources in Nigeria, you have to understand that most of your oil resources is concentrated in the south, especially closer to your Niger River Delta. Now, why is this important? Well, at the end of our discussion, we'll be looking at the areas which are volatile in terms of national security for Nigeria. And we will see that there are certain climatic limitations and resource limitations for those regions, which leads to political conflict. So keep this in mind that most of its oil resources is concentrated in the southern side. Now, let's go to a physical discussion. So if you look at the primary setup in Nigeria, Nigeria's southern part is a plain, as we spoke about. Here we have the Niger Delta. Similarly, the areas in the northern part of Nigeria are also plains. In the central region, we have a large plateau. And I believe you can pretty much see from the diagram, the picture which is right here, that rivers start from this plateau, then flow around in multiple directions. So this plateau, which determines the drainage basin and drainage systems in parts of Nigeria, is your Jos Plateau. Now, talking about different river systems, the primary river system in Nigeria is your river Niger. And as you can see, the river Niger does not really start within Nigeria. It starts way west of Nigeria in the Guinea Highlands. Starting from Guinea Highlands, the river first flows northward. And in parts of the country, Mali, there is a steep depression, and when it enters a depression, it forms a large inland delta. It's pretty interesting because whenever you prepare for your geography and you learn about fluvial deposition systems, you would have learned that when it comes to delta is usually formed when the river meets the sea. So we call it as an inland delta primarily because this area is dominated by swampland. And because of the subsidence in topography and the depression, the river creates a large swampy area, which is called as the Makina swamp. Also said there's the Masina swamp, Makina or Masina swamp, which is spread over Mali. And after traveling through Mali, creating this large inland delta, it takes a U-turn, and you can see the river is moving through the country of Niger, which is right here. And after passing through Niger, exactly on the border, which is between Benin and Niger, and then it enters Nigeria and then forms this very large delta. And keep this in mind, after the two rivers meaning River Nile and River Congo in Africa, this is the third longest river. and naturally it is the most dominant river in the Western African basin. And keep that in mind for your prelims examination. We have spoken about this before. Whenever there are countries, UPSC for world geography ask questions on where does the country flow, where does the river flow through, rather than the origin of the country. So it is flowing into your Atlantic Ocean. Keep that in mind. So that is with reference to the most important river system, not just in Nigeria, but the entire western portion of Africa. Now, we have to understand that there is one more important tributary of River Niger. So that tributary is River Benue. So River Benue starts from here in the country of Cameroon. So from Cameroon highlands, which is on the eastern side, the rivers originate, and then it passes through Nigeria, Benue, right there, and it merges with the river Niger, for which we had a short discussion right now. That's Niger for you. Of course, there are less chances that they might ask you, but since Benue is a major tributary, we just thought we'll introduce this. Now, before we proceed into our discussion regarding the important provinces which are under conflict, I just want to introduce a very important water body. The water body is just right here. Now, this is not exactly in the center of Nigeria. As you can clearly see, it is the northeastern part of Nigeria, and it is shared by four other countries. We are talking about an inland water body, a very important lake, which is Lake Chad. Now, Lake Chad has been important for the economy of the countries which are present in Sahel region. Now, it is natural for the lake to be dry during your dry season of the savanna climate, and when there is high rainfall for a time period of 4 months, it is completely swampy. It's filled with water. But the problem is, since 1960s, Lake Chad has been experiencing a significant reduction in rainfall in many parts of the Sahel region. Rainfall has decreased on an average by 40%. Because of that, if you look at the total surface area of Lake Chad, it has shrunk by close to 90%. So I'm pretty sure you can compare the total size which is present right there. So today or in 2007, 20 years back, and this is 1963, you can say that Lake Chad is spread over many countries, including Nigeria, Niger, Chad, and of course Cameroon. So today it's a very small water body right there, and all the governments are trying to replenish the lake, actively involving into measures. Now, in the final part of our discussion, we have spoken about this earlier, that if there is a conflict prone region, they can ask you match the following questions. So, what UPSC tends to do is they present the region which is present in news, and they ask you what exactly is the corresponding country, right? So, if you take Nigeria, and I'm pretty sure you're following the news, there is a very notorious terrorist organization which is present in northeastern part of Nigeria. That terrorist organization is Boko Haram. So that is highlighted in this map here. And Boko Haram has a traditional stronghold in the northeastern part, Nigeria. So if you look at the major states or provinces of Nigeria where they're usually active, the states include Borno as conflict region number one. Second is Adamawa, and third is Yobe. Now, as I told you before, when we spoke about oil reserves, I told you that most of your oil reserves is centered in the southern part of Nigeria. That's one reason why it's financially pretty stronger. At the same time, if you look at the commercial and leading financial center, it is Lagos, which is present right here. Of course, the capital city is Abuja, but Abuja was instituted as a federal capital much later, and Lagos has been the traditional commercial center, and it continues to be. The southern part of Nigeria is economically well off. It has greater employment opportunities compared to the north. At the same time, rainfall is higher in the southern part of Nigeria, and from south, as you slowly start moving northward, there is a decrease in average rainfall. So when there is decrease in average rainfall, automatically there are limits on agricultural production, productivity, and there are issues in seasonal unemployment. So what Boko Haram has done is exploited this economic situation, and it has expanded largely in the last 15 years. And they're pretty active in the northeastern part of Nigeria. Now, you would naturally think that this is one area where you have conflict, but unfortunately, conflict is spreading through other federal provinces in the country of Nigeria, because we have other terrorist organizations which are the affiliates of the Islamic State. We have the Islamic state of Sahel province, which is less known, and we also have the Islamic state of West African province. Both of them express their allegiance to the Islamic State terrorist organization, and you have them actively involved in many problems in states like Zamfara, which is right here, in Kwara, which is recently in news, province Kwara, in province Kano, which is right here, and then in province Katsina, is right there. Now, you have to understand that usually when we discuss provinces, we keep ourselves limited to two to three. But since the conflict has spread over multiple areas, it's not just restricted to the northeastern region. Even certain parts in northern provinces and northwestern provinces are coming under the problems which are associated with national security. So, just to summarize the entire discussion, we started with the importance of resource, that is oil being a major export in Nigeria and having the sixth largest population in the world. We also talked about rivers Niger and Benue rivers, Niger being the longest river in the West African region. At the same time, a peculiar feature of Niger rivers was your Makina swamps. We also had a short description of Lake Chad. The Lake Chad has been largely shrinking because of reduction in average rainfall due to climate change. And finally, we looked at states or vulnerable areas for security of Nigeria. So, to have a simple overview, the states included, conflict region news for match the following. They are Borno, Adamawa, Yobe, Zamfara, Katsina, and Kwara, which were highlighted in the map. So every episode we have a quick discussion, and every time, as I tell you, what you focus on always determines what you miss. So we spoke about Nigeria. Let's see whether you can answer landlocked countries. So these are the questions for discussion. These are the countries for the discussion. The countries include South Sudan, Uganda, Guinea, and Gambia. So the question is, how many of the countries which are mentioned here are landlocked? So you can leave your answer in the comment section below. So this is Gautam signing off, and I'll meet you with the next episode next Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Thank you.